It is time. Book 8 is here, and we have our first banner reveal. Obviously, we already know everybody on this banner, so let's just go ahead and jump in, analyze all the heroes, see how good they really are, and then see how much power creep they introduce into the game, because I'm sure there will be at least a little bit of it. Okay, let's start off with our first unit, the new rearmed hero, Rearmed Lucina, who should be bringing a pretty powerful Arcane axe. Okay, so we have Arcane, pretty much. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but whatever, good enough. So what this essentially does is you get Slaying, and at start of turn, if your HP is greater than or equal to 25%, you will inflict attack and defense -6 visible debuff on the closest foe and the foe within 2 spaces of them. It's like almost like a meta skill, but a little bit better, right? And then also, you'll also get +5 to all stats during combat, and you'll also inflict -X to all stats on the foe during combat, where X is the highest penalty either on the unit you're attacking or any foe within 2 spaces of them. So this is just a ton of stats essentially, right? You can easily get like -6 to a stat on the foe, but you can get much higher, especially if you're considered like the bright or dark shrines, which can go up to like -11 or 12. So essentially you could get a ton of stats on this weapon as long as you are playing into those debuffs or you have some kind of debuffer on your team. You're also going to get full tempo. That's right, you're going to get the offensive and defensive tempo built into the weapon. And then lastly, you're going to get full no follow-up, but it does have a speed check built into it. This is a very, very powerful arcane weapon. Oh my god, the fact that this can be given out to like any axe unit now is kind of insane. Now obviously you're going to want to put this on your faster axe units because it's going to synergize better. That's how you're going to get the speed, you're going to get the speed no follow-up and stuff like that. So, but honestly, like this is probably one of the best arcane weapons, if not the best arcane weapon in the game. I think this might be tied for Lewin. The thing is, Lewin does give that true damage and a low speed defense, which really helps. But this one's going to give more stats than Lewin will typically, and you get tempo, which is really, really, really strong when you're trying to go for a more offensive build, or if you're trying to go for a build that like wants to like loop specials, right? Like if you're trying to loop Vital Astra and you're not using Times Pulse, or if you're trying to loop godlike reflexes, this weapon's going to be really good. And the other thing is that a lot of units are using special acceleration to get to those big specials, and so this is going to turn that off as well. So honestly, this is a very, very good arcane weapon. I love this way more than Ganglot's, like 100 times more, as long as the unit is fast. If you're going for a slower axe, definitely go for Ganglot's arcane weapon. Next, we have our PRF skill, Future Sight. So we have an upgraded PRF for Lucina, and what this does is it has a swap built into it, but it also grants attack and speed +6 as a visible bonus. You get Treachery, so that's true damage based off the foe's debuffs. And then lastly, if the unit initiates combat, you get 40% damage reduction from the foe's first attack. So this is a pretty powerful PRF, like a swap skill, right? Like this is really nice. Getting the visible bonus is like kind of expected, but Treachery is a really powerful like effect in this game. Being able to get that much true damage, you can easily get like up to 24 or more true damage from Treachery. And if you're going to be like a faster unit, which you should be, right? Because Lucina is a fast unit. This is going to help a ton. This is going to just put out a ton of damage, and you're getting 40% damage reduction, which is nothing to like laugh at, like, or, you know, this is a good assist skill. Is it as good as like say Crom's? Probably not quite, I would say. I think I still prefer Brave Crom and Valentine Crom's PRF assist a little bit more, but this is really good, and it can be used in a lot of different ways. Now the thing is, she is an axe cav, so it does limit exactly where you can use this. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I do think this is like a big upgrade, and I definitely like this more than even Legendary Lucina's quite a bit. So this is a very nice skill. Nice to see Lucina getting some love. Then we also have Attack Speed Clash 4, Speed Defense Snag 4, even though for some reason they have a blue icon here showing that it's res, it is Speed Defense Snag 4, which is also like pretty underrated right now. I think snags are pretty good. And then lastly, we have Alarm Defense Res being added into the game. This is kind of like a more situational unit. This is more like a situational skill. Not a lot of units are going to actually want this, but it does work well on Lucina, as she's going to be able to give those visible attack and speed +6 from her assist skill, so she doesn't really need like alarm attack speed. So this is pretty nice, and it's going to give her that Canto 2, which is really good. Okay, when it comes to Lucina's rolls, she's going to be pretty good at Gale Force. Having that full tempo in her weapon really helps, alongside Slaying as well. So that means that she can run something like a special acceleration in her seal to get going, like a Heavy Blade or something like that. And then she could do pretty well. She could also just get a visible bonus that from a special acceleration, like something from Na, which is going to allow her to use some really strong Gale Forcing as well. Other than that, I could see her definitely being used in like game modes like SD, possibly on like a Cav line team, right? Kind of the same thing that Brave Crom does. Now the difference obviously is that Brave Crom really gets some crazy bonuses that he can steal from his allies, which is what makes him so good. But the cool thing is with Lucina is that she still gives action economy, which is really strong in those types of teams, because a lot of times what you want to do is set up a Congo line, and then you don't want to like immediately go in. You kind of want to like make them lose some of their actions first before you engage. And so being able to use Future Sight and being able to give that visible bonus of attack with +6, treachery and damage reduction, and delay a turn is really good. So I think it is possible that we see Lucina on those kind of teams. The one major downside, of course, is that she doesn't have 4 movement, and you really want high movement on those types of teams, and that's why Brave Crom works so well, because he can steal the 4 movement buff from someone like Brave Seliph or like a lot of other units as well. But I think if we do see her, that's probably where it's going to be at, probably on Aether Raid's offense as a Gale Forcer or Summoner Duels on those Cav line teams. Okay, let's move on to our next unit. Okay, so our next unit up is Severa, and she has Striving Sword. Now this is a crazy weapon, they just literally gave her everything. What this essentially does is you get Slang, and then if she's within 3 spaces of an ally, you're going to get +X to all stats during combat, where X is 25% of the foe's visible attack at the beginning of combat, -4. You can get up to max 14. That's right, you can get +14 to all stats from her weapon. That's already absurd. But then you also get Guard, which is very nice. But then you get some other effects as well, where if the unit's attack triggers her special, so if Severa has an offensive special, it will neutralize all percentage-based damage reduction. So not like from specials or like from Hardy Fighter or like things like that, but all those like percentage damage reduction effects you see very commonly, she'll just neutralize it. That's really strong. God Swords have been moving towards like needing to secure kills, and that's a great way to do it. But then also there's another effect where if she's within 3 spaces of an ally and the foe's attack triggers a special, so like Godlike Reflexes or like a defensive special, she'll also get damage reduction piercing all the way through. So she'll be able to just nullify damage reduction and completely smash the enemy. But if that wasn't enough, there's an additional effect. So if she's within 3 spaces of an ally again, and her special triggers before combat or during combat, she'll get special cooldown count -2 after combat. This is just kind of absurd, to be honest. They just made it so that she gets literally everything. So it doesn't matter like what special she uses, she's gonna get something out of it, right? She'll get damage reduction piercing, or she'll also get special cooldown count -2, which means that she'll have an easy time looping specials. Even like AoEs or like Godlike Reflexes or whatever else. I mean, this weapon is just completely overtuned in my opinion. There's like everything in it. You get a billion stats, you get guard, and like a billion different ways to have your special activate in different, like activate with different effects. So very powerful PRF weapon. We also have Godlike Reflexes, attack speed finish 4, and a new B skill buffer 4. So essentially what this is another tier 4 speed-based damage reduction effect, but it's kind of like Shield Pulse, where at the start of turn 1, you'll get -2 special cooldown if you're using a defensive special. So this is going to work really well, obviously, with Godlike Reflexes, because it will just completely charge it on turn 1. You're going to get speed and defense -4 on the foe, so you're getting those very important stats. You'll also get a Phantom Speed 2, so you get +7 speed whenever you do a speed check against your ally or a foe. And then lastly, of course, you get speed-based damage reduction up to 50%. So essentially what they did is they just kind of upgraded Shield Pulse and just made it way better. Shield Pulse obviously is pretty niche right now. There are some units who can use it, but typically it's kind of used as like a budget hardy fighter for armors, or it's used when you like have no other choice to charge your Godlike Reflexes. Buffer 4 is obviously going to be an amazing skill. It's going to be really good on units who want to pre-charge their specials. Kind of like Flame Lyn would love this, right? And also like Legendary Corn, if she can use this right. Pretty much anyone who needs help charging up their Godlike Reflexes, this is a great option for it. Very nice skill. It definitely feels a nice niche as well. Okay, so when it comes to roles, obviously Severa wants to play a God Sword. That is the main thing she wants to do. Her weapon's really built around that. So that's not to say she can't do other things as well, right? She can run a really powerful AoE build. She can also just go for an offensive build because she can really pierce DR, so she's gonna be able to go in and smash things and just completely destroy them. Now, the one thing you're gonna have to worry about is that her condition for pretty much every effect in her weapon is that she has an ally within 3 spaces. So that means you kind of need to use her in such a way that she isn't too far out of range of your allies. When it comes to game modes, I can definitely see her being used in. Aether Raid's offense is probably the most obvious one of all. She's gonna be a great God Sword there, just being able to like omni tank everything, and she'll do a great job with the proper supports. It's possible that she could also be used in Summoner Duels as like a raid boss. I could see that being definitely working. The only problem, of course, is that no matter what kind of God Sword you're using, capture balls can be quite scary unless you're like Lucina, right, who can like turn off specials. So that is something you're going to have to be concerned about, but I definitely think she can fill that role pretty well with the proper supports as well. Overall, very powerful unit, very just overstacked weapon. It's kind of insane. Okay, next up is our demote for the banner, Laurent, and he actually is a colorless tome. I didn't catch this on the Fae channel, but we have our first permanent pool colorless tome, and honestly, he doesn't really have much here to write home about. He has Frit Deer, which is if the foe initiates combat or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, he'll get attack plus 5 during combat, he'll inflict attack minus 5 on the foe, and guard. Honestly, not much to write home about, but as a colorless tome, you really don't have much options, as only Nime is the only other colorless tome that doesn't have, like, that has an inheritable weapon, so really you don't have many options when it comes to his weapons. Maybe in the future we'll get like an Arcane colorless tome. I kind of doubt it, but maybe, so you have to look forward to that. Other than that, his fodder is decent, attack res ideal is nice, but there's not much to write home about. If you're a big fan of him, you can definitely build him, but I don't think he's going to be really impacting the meta in any kind of way. Okay, let's move on to our final unit of the banner, the star, Ratatoskr. Okay, so Ratatoskr is our newest Astra Mythic, and her new preference weapon is World Tree Tail. What this has is Canto 2, so permanent Canto 2, which is very nice. You get Slaying, and at the start of combat, if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%, she'll get plus $5 stats. She'll also get attack and speed plus X, where X is 9 minus 3 times the number of allies with HP less than or equal to 40%. So what this essentially means is that you want your allies on your team to be healthy, and luckily Ratatoskr can help that because she does have some healing support in her preference C skill. This is already just a ton of stats right here, so she's going to be very fast and very high attack. She also gets special acceleration, which is really nice. She gets 40% damage reduction against the foe's first attack, and this counts for brave weapons, so if it's a brave attack, it'll be the first 2 attacks. Then she gets the cavalry transformation, which gives attack plus 2, and then you also get like a nice little clash effect and some damage reduction as well if you move enough spaces. Overall, this is a pretty solid weapon, right? Canto 2 is definitely something you don't want to underestimate. It makes her very mobile, makes her really good at like just getting around, getting pots, stuff like that. And also when it comes to Gale Force, which she's going to be pretty good at, she can go in, kill something, and then move out of the way or move into a different position so that other allies can come in the proper positions, which is a really big deal. Now the thing is you have to consider is that she does have special acceleration, which is really good on Cavs, because Cavs don't have access to Flashing Blade or like any of those, so they're pretty much reliant on either like Heavy Blade in their A slot or Heavy Blade in their Seal slot, which is really bad. So having built-in special acceleration is really nice, and it's going to make her much better at Gale Forcing, and she has some nice damage reduction, which means that she won't die immediately. Okay, so now we have a tier 4 version of Beast Agility, the skill that Emblem introduced last year. What this essentially does is it removes the condition for transformation. You get speed and defense minus 4 on the foe, which is nice. And then if your speed is greater than the foe's speed, you get full no follow-up, which is an upgrade over Beast Agility 3, which was only an offensive no fault before. And you get 10% speed-based true damage, which is really nice. So overall, this is a pretty solid upgrade. The fact that it gives you full no follow-up makes it much better because it means you don't need to have any no follow-up in your weapon, which is really good because a lot of like Cav units don't have the option for that. And then you also get some extra damage just to punch through and kill some things. So overall, pretty solid upgrade. Then we have her preference C skill, Mending Heart, which we saw on the Fae channel. What this essentially does is after she acts, she'll apply a new Divine Feign called Green to the space she's at, and then any space within 2 spaces of herself. And the really cool thing about this is it will activate when she acts and then also after she cancels, which means you can get a lot of this terrain down in one turn. And then she's also going to restore 7 HP to allies within 2 spaces of herself. And then lastly, if she initiates combat or she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she'll get plus 4 to all stats during combat, and she'll inflict guard on the foe. And then lastly, she'll also restore 7 HP to herself after combat. So overall, how is Ratatoskr looking as an Astra Mythic, and what kind of roles does she want to play, and what games are you going to see her in? So when it comes to roles, I think her main role is definitely going to be Gale Forcing. I think that's what she's going to do the best. Obviously also support. So she's going to be a Gale Force support. She can do some hit and run as well because she can act as that unit who kind of gets your hit and run unit out, right? A lot of times your hit and run unit will go in, kill something. Maybe they can cancel out. Sometimes they'll get cancel controlled. The great thing about Ratatoskr is she has 3 movement and cancel 2, which means she can go in, like reposition the ally out and then get out herself. And at the same time, she'll be healing them up and leaving some terrain to make the any engagements a little bit more forgiving. And of course, she'll also be turning off warping, which means that when you do that hit and run, it will stop things like guidance or soaring guidance from like doing the follow-up on you, which can sometimes snipe your units. So already like that's some pretty good support there. The other way you're going to definitely be using her in Aether Raid's offense is that you're going to just be using her as a pure support unit. You'll just kind of like run her up, maybe she'll do a rally or like some kind of assist skill. She'll put down the anti-warping terrain and giving out guard, and then she'll kind of just spread it out for your Omni Tank or your save ball, and then she'll just kind of chill in the back, maybe offering a drive in her like her seal or something like that. So she'll be playing like more of a support of role. I think that's definitely a great option for her, and it's a pretty good option too, because the thing is, guard is something you definitely want, right? So Divine Vein Green giving out anti-warping and guard is big because it allows your tank to run more offensive or just better skills. Lastly, like I mentioned earlier, Gale Force. When it comes to Gale Force, the problem with Ratatoskr is that her healing. Her healing is definitely something you don't want on a Gale Forcer typically because it turns off Wings of Mercy. So what you really want to do here is like you're probably going to want to use her as a secondary unit. You're going to probably want to put like Wings of Mercy on her, and then what you'll do is have somebody else engage, and then she can warp in, kill something, activate Gale Force, and then like cancel around and like get out of the way essentially. The fact that she has special acceleration will help with that a ton. The only bad thing, of course, is that she won't have no follow-up if you're running Wings of Mercy. So that's something you're going to have to look out for. Overall, I do think like the game mode she's going to be the best in is probably Aether Raid's offense. I could see people trying to use her in Summoner Duels because she has anti-warping, and anti-warping is like really, really powerful in Summoner Duels because like, you know, obviously guidance and soaring guidance is like literally everywhere. The problem with that is that like you have to act, right? So you need to rally, or you need to like end action possibly, or like do something to activate this Divine Vein, right? And the problem with that is that if your opponent is a good player, they will set up on turn 1, and then they will make sure they get the first turn. And by doing that, your anti-warping won't be active, which means they can warp in, kill whatever like important unit they need to kill, be that the save, be that like somebody else, right? And then after that, they can just win a trading war. And so I don't think this is actually all that great in Summoner Duels, especially considering her like movement and weapon type. Cav Beast is really not what you want in that kind of team. You really want some kind of like ranged unit typically who can do some good damage as well, so that they can like play into the Catchery Wall or to in some other kind of team like that. And so with her, it's definitely possible that she can show up in Summoner Duels, but I think it's going to be a lot more difficult to use than people are imagining. And the thing is like she doesn't fully replace Gatekeeper. I know this is coming from me who is not a big Gatekeeper fan, but Gatekeeper's effect is just always active, which is really, really good. The big problem with Gatekeeper is that he just doesn't kill things, right? And so when it comes to Ratatoskr versus Gatekeeper, I think they'll both be very usable. Maybe I'll just keep Gatekeeper in Light Season, and I'll keep Ratatoskr in Astra Season, and they'll have anti-warping in both, which would be nice. The cool thing about Gatekeeper, obviously, is that he just gives out more stats than she will, which is a big deal. But her being able to give out guard is also a very big deal. So I think that they're both going to be pretty good in that. But when it comes to Summoner Duels, I just don't see it yet. But maybe I'm wrong and someone finds some crazy team she works really well on. Okay, let's move on to the Astra Mythic tier list. And this list is kind of crazy now. As you might notice, there's a lot of units in tier 1 for me. At the top, we still have Veil. Veil has just been proving to be very powerful in Aether Raids and Summoner Duels, so she definitely deserves that top spot. Then we have Plumeria. Plumeria is just the best Astra Mythic in actual season. Outside of season, she's okay, but in season, she's just phenomenal. Then we have Altina, once again, a great Vantage unit, probably the best Vantage unit in the game still, and so she's great for Astra season there, and then she's also just amazing in Summoner Duels where she can just carry the entire team or act as a frontliner with a support. And then we have Haether. Haether, once again, great nuke and great support, and the best user of Ruse 4, which means she can turn off Catchery very effectively. So at the very end, we're going to have Ratatoskr, our new Astra Mythic. I think she just makes it into this tier list because she is quite flexible when it comes to strategies. Like I mentioned earlier, she can fulfill that support role. She can be that pot hound and go get those pots. And then she can also just act as a Gale Force unit as well. So I think when it comes to Astra season, she will be quite strong and quite flexible, which is nice. But I don't see her being used outside of Astra season all that much. Maybe I'm wrong, but for right now, I just don't see that. So I'm going to put her at the end of S+. Maybe at the top of S as well. We'll see how she ages, but she might go up or down considering. And then after that, we still have pretty much everyone else in the same spot. Sather, Regan, and then Elamine, who has dropped. Honestly, Elamine might drop down to the top of A tier because she's just fallen off so hard thanks to Freyr, which really sucks. And then we have Thor Naga and my girl Ashera at the very bottom. But don't worry, she has a remix and refine coming up. So I'm hoping Ashera will skyrocket to the top and break the game. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video. Should you pull? Okay. when it comes to should you pull, we have some big pros here, right? We have a new Arcane Axe, which is possibly the best arcane weapon in the game. If not the second best, it's really, really powerful. We also have some skill duplication with Lucina, which is really nice. And then we also have an Astra Mythic. And Astra Mythics being on a sparkable banner is really, really good. Like, I really can't underestimate how good this is. If you love Ratatoskr and really want to merge her up, this is a great way to do it, as you'll be able to get up to 2 sparks, which means you can go in, spark, get 1 Ratatoskr guaranteed, and then probably pick up 1 or 2 more copies along the way. And then if she gets a rerun, you can do it again, and then you can make it. It just makes it way easier to spark. Believe me, like, you can probably get her like plus 10 and like less than 1,000 orbs if you have better luck than me. So that's definitely a good option. There is some good fodder here as well, and like I mentioned earlier, there are 2 sparks on this banner, so this is definitely some great reasons to pull on this banner. When it comes to cons, obviously we have some great things coming up, and so if you aren't really interested in this banner, if you don't really need an Arcane Axe, or if you're not really interested in Ratatoskr herself, then you should probably save, because we have Choose Your Legend rerun in December on that Legendary and Mythic banner, which is going to be insane guaranteed, right? We have some absolutely absurd shares in like red and green, and then blue's really solid as well, and so is colorless. So like pretty much the whole banner is already stacked, and we haven't even seen all of it yet, right? Not all of it's been confirmed, but it's really, really good. We also have the Christmas banner, which tends to introduce some powerful stuff, and the New Year's banner, which is also tends to be a little bit powerful as well. So we have some really powerful banners coming up, and then of course we can't not talk about the anniversary in February, which is like just like one of the best times of the year, where we just get an absolutely ridiculous amounts of crazy banners. So if you want to save orbs, this might be the banner to skip. Personally, I'll probably be going at least 1 spark in, maybe 2 depending on how it goes. But now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this banner? Are you going to be pulling on this banner? What are you going for? Are you going for Ratatoskr, some merges on her? Or are you going for that Arcane Axe because you really love speed axe arcanes? Because they're just the best in the game. I absolutely love them. Can't wait until we get to the dagger. Either way, make sure to drop a comment down below letting me know how you feel. And as always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later with more furry emblem heroes.